Okay, I'm going to stop the video right there. So, I had made a video for Nothing Media after they contacted me about Dream Bus tours, and you can still watch it, but it shows what will look like a personal journey of seeking that ends up being completely untrue. If anything, blabbing on about a story muddies the waters, because actually all there is this seemingly happening. This animation apparently running, and an apparent but not a real viewer watching this at their computer or on their phone or whatever. It's seemingly happening as a whole appearance. No one here and no one there. So now that said, watch an untrue tale. It was not true while it seemed to happen, and certainly untrue and unfindable in the telling, when all there is this apparently happening, and it's only ever this apparently happening. So any message to a viewer is completely useless. Nevertheless, here is the untrue video presenting Dream Bus tours and an untrue past. Hello. I'd like to present to you the series Dream Bus Tours. It's a story of Billy and Boris, Billy McMee and Boris McHugh, and they're searching for enlightenment. And they're taking the usual route that we have all taken. For this interview, I went digging into the archives and found this animation I did about 15 years ago of my past seeking.
Great Spirit, Chief Fluffy Cloud has a message for you all from the other side. He says, have a nice day.
Say the sacred mantra, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, for 3 lifetimes. Then maybe you'll reach enlightenment.
Yes, I see it now. One day, you will die. Huh? What?
You are a miserable sinner!
It was round about this time that I encountered the Ramana Maharshi lineage. I met some gurus in the Ramana lineage and there was this massive awakening. Also, I thought, one of those ones where you and the earth disappear and come back as one and you're left with this sense of who you are as silent consciousness and that the ground of being is consciousness. And you see others also as consciousness, but maybe they have a few trances running and it seemed helpful to help people wake up. I was then asked to teach, and so I travelled to Europe and the US running retreats, thinking that I was helping the world wake up. But then there was this guru sex scandal and I decided to leave. I continued cartooning about consciousness, but with an increasing suspicion that something wasn't quite right. And one day, serendipitously, I happened to watch a video on Tony Parsons. And there's no other way to describe this, but everything just turned into love. After that, I immediately ordered all his books and flew across the globe to meet him. But I had books and a website with 700 cartoons on consciousness and enlightenment and exactly how to wake up to enlightenment. But Tony seemed to be saying that there was no you and no consciousness. That's just unheard of. You could have knocked me over with a feather. And then there was a lot of teeth gnashing and hair pulling because that was the opposite of satsang and the non-duality that I felt I knew. And this was swiftly followed up with the torture of flipping a lot between meing and being. In every way it was so fundamentally different from the usual story where you sit up on the platform with your beloved guru. You discover your consciousness is the same as the guru and it's the same awareness as oneness and this is your true self. And you're filled with love and bliss and you want to share that enlightenment with everyone. And here's someone saying consciousness is only a dreamt reality. So it's pointless trying to even capture this person's conscious awareness or experience for yourself because there isn't one. And it leaves nothing that is required for everything to be as it is. So here's the me. I live here in time, and all I'm aware of is me and my perspective. From this perspective, it seems as if there is a subjective experience that I am feeling. This is made up though. The brain can't see or hear or experience anything. It just reads code from the senses, and the data flows in so fast that it creates a scenario as if it was a flight simulator in full immersion. There is even a sense of a pilot in here. That would be me, except that I'm not really here. Nor is there a real pilot in anyone else's brain. Neuroscientists have said that while the brain is like a flight simulator, there is no pilot in the cockpit. It's when you combine the proprioceptive sense of balance with the senses, bringing in external vision, that you have full immersion in what seems like a someone in the cockpit who lives in here. And because the pilot seems to live in space and time and in a location of in here, that it projects space and time and a location out there as well. It's very good for survival. Only problem is that there is no real pilot. This here is an artificial, dreamt reality. And sometimes this dreamt up pilot thinks its true self is consciousness. I'm not the pilot with a whole lot of problems. I'm the light of consciousness that I appear in. And then this pilot, which isn't here, takes a mighty leap in its thinking and says, I am not a pilot with problems. I am this. I am eternal. I am one with God. But consciousness is simply a function. This here is the illusory and transparent interface upon which knowledge appears, and that's all. Unfortunately, you can't just tell the dreamt-up pilot it only lives in a dream as a way to end this artificial reality. As a dreamt reality, I can't access the brain's projector and turn it off. Nor can I, as the pilot, wake up and go, I am the illusion. I'm enlightened. Nor can I say I'm not here. Saying that just seems to reconfirm that I'm here. If you say there is no pilot, the brain runs that through its data and finds it an impossible thing to compute, especially when the dreamt-up pilot adds to its sense of survival. So you can't convince the dreamt-up pilot that it isn't real. Telling it isn't real seems to confirm its very reality, and when the me seems like it is here, well, that's just what's apparently happening. A dream is occurring. There can, though, be a resonance when you hear that the pilot in here isn't real, because, well, the pilot isn't real or in here, and it can seemingly die, leaving an appearance of a functioning brain, but no dreamt-up pilot living in time and space and projecting time and space out there, which leaves just what is, as an apparent appearance of wholeness with no artificial, separate observer. Without the artificially dreamt observer, it becomes obvious that there is only what is, and nothing other than what is, and that this what-isness is completely blind to itself and is completely without knowledge. The dilemma is there when the dreamt observer wants to know it is dreamt up, which is impossible, but it seeks it anyway. And there is the added befuddlement when it's linked with tales of enlightenment, spirituality and awareness as a possible solution. And I've put this whole dilemma into Dream Bus Tours, where Billy and Boris are seeking out the absolute. And as you'll see, they are seeking with awareness, which is like looking for the dark with a flashlight. And so all they can see is light, even though everything is dark, or everything is already the absolute. As it is. It's the artificial reality of a me consciousness that creates this great divide between what is and the absolute. Believing itself to be a conscious being, it naturally thinks that its true self, once it's still and silent, will mean you can float off to a magnificent experience of the absolute. Instead, there's no you, there's no awareness, there's no absolute, there's no non-duality. It turns the whole idea of an awake, enlightened consciousness on its head. It is a little sad to discover that you've been searching with your awareness, going within, and you've really just had your head up your own backside the whole time. And with such sincere earnestness, not that any of it could be any different. Throughout Dream Bus Tours, we often find Mr. Non-Dual at the This Changes Everything bar, where there is a neon cube flashing the two views of an optical illusion that perfectly highlight the two views of non-duality. So in this view you see a dark blue box sitting on the floor in the corner of two walls. And we tend to relate to being the box in the corner, separate from our environment, and there with our own consciousness. And the cube as a little box sitting in a corner represents the non-dual teaching or satsang, whereby there is a you who needs to, or would be able to do something to realise or attain oneness. When we look through a spiritual duality lens, we see people as separate and as needing to, at least do something spiritual to attain a more awake awareness. And this list of what they need to do becomes endless. And through this same lens, we see others as having attained a wondrous enlightened awareness. And these people we think we need to bow down to, because oneness resides inside them as a person. But the second view of this optical illusion, and the other view of non-duality, is that there is only one cube representing wholeness, and there isn't actually a smaller box in the corner representing a separate you. Where it was thought to be a box, turns out to be nothing. No box is ever separate from the whole cube because it wasn't there in the first place. So there isn't a someone in the corner who can do anything, especially anything spiritual, because there isn't anyone. And where there seemed to be a person separate from oneness, just turns out to be no one. No one to teach to, no one to receive a teaching, no one to receive enlightened awareness. How can an unenlightened box in the corner even become an enlightened box in the corner when the box in the corner turns out not to be there? It is then so funny that all these teachers of non-duality and satsang are actually teaching duality. It turns out they're the ones looking at you through the lens of duality and thinking that you need to do something to become oneness. It's funny, but I taught the same thing. I was a dualist teacher thinking I was pointing people to non-duality. A message can't be offered. There isn't a message that anyone can receive. And just to go back to the brain again, that feeling of presence is determined by the number of sensory inputs to the brain. That's all. In the end, that is all that's apparently happening, as a seamless whole. It isn't a veil that obscures a hidden truth and needs to be gotten rid of. It's just what's apparently happening. It doesn't mean there is someone in here, because there never is an actual someone in here. A feeling or the energy of presence doesn't confirm a someone. It's just confirming an appearance of what's happening, but for no one. And it does then seem ludicrous how some non-duality teachings point to presence as leading to a purer divine presence, when all it leads to is an attempt for a non-existent pilot to have a still and silent interface in the brain, as if that would make the non-existent pilot enlightened and able to transmit enlightenment to other non-existent pilots. They are after an experience of purity and divine knowledge of the Absolute, when neither the pilot or the Absolute exist. Whereas this non-message of non-duality simply points out that there is no one to receive a message, because there's no one behind the veil of the sense of presence. There is no one in here. So even if it seems as if there is a someone watching this video and it feels like there is a sense of presence, that sense of presence is happening for no one. No one is in there. Nothing that seemingly happens ever does actually confirm a you. It is just what's happening. And just as there is no one behind this sense of presence, there isn't an absolute or a knowledge or something behind this appearance. There is just this appearance. Nothing hidden, no you, no hidden reality behind this appearance of reality. And now just to return to the story, I was also teaching 101 exercises on how to use therapy to wake up to your true self, which turns out to be an exercise in futility. Worse, it keeps alive the sense of being a being with its own consciousness who needs to have an awake whole consciousness. That's the dream of being a conscious being. Nothing helps wholeness, nothing helps a dream seeker who turns out not to be there. And that can be the most fantastic, wonderful news, or it can just be adding to the worst dilemma possible, although it is only an apparent dilemma. And poor Billy and Boris do all the seeking I think many of us have tried, and meet many of the teachers in the Seekers Circuit, even though it turns out there is no Billy and Boris, and all those teachers advocating for personal enlightenment are just what's apparently appearing, with no free will or real and separate selves anywhere, just what is. And what is has no knowledge of an apparent you or me or an apparent dilemma.